Welcome to Keeping Score. I'm Rick Horrow. Each week we bring you insights from the playmakers, deal makers, and rule makers in the world of sports. I'll give you my take on some of the items of the week using my 30 years of experience doing deals for teams, leagues, and players in the $750 billion business of sports. Plus, we'll talk with a central figure in the sports world. The views expressed in this podcast are my own and do not represent the views of Reuters. Let's get started. Heinz Field in Pittsburgh is trying to catch up with Gillette Stadium near Boston, Sports Authority Field at Mile High in Denver, and others in the hunt for the Super Bowl. The Steelers, who play there, have filed a formal application to bring Super Bowl, 57, to the city in 2023. The application, the first step towards securing approval from the NFL to submit a formal bid to host the game. Cold weather cities are waiting in line after the New York area hosted a game in February 2014. The league hasn't indicated it'll support another game that could be subjected to snow, ice, and freezing wind chills. The Phoenix Coyotes and the Phoenix Suns could become the anchor tenants of a new arena downtown. The Arizona Republic reports they could also end up in Scottsdale as part of an existing gaming resort. The Coyotes not having much luck in Glendale at the Gila River Arena. The hockey team's ownership group falling short on its ability to book near-sellout shows around the NHL season. Revenue from fans attending concerts is about $1 million short of projections. And wherever the Coyotes end up, the decision should be made in tandem with the potential expansion of the league to Las Vegas and Quebec. $50 million. That's how much Fox Sports is reportedly paying the St. Louis Cardinals in the first year of a media rights deal starting in 2018. The contract runs for 15 years and gives the team an equity stake in Fox Sports Midwest. The Cardinals joining the ranks of the Yankees and the Dodgers, teams with lucrative regional cable TV deals. These are becoming the biggest differentiator between the haves and have-nots in the sport. Now on to another Fox Sports network, the Yes Network, and CEO Tracy Dolja.
Tracy, you realize that it's been 11 years since Yes Network and your creation and the start. It's flown by, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's pretty amazing. It's only been regional sports business has only really been around the way it is now for probably the last 15 years. But the Yes Network as sort of a standalone where the content owner had a stake in it and really was using it to build a brand along with an audience and community. That was a sort of a new thought with the Yes Network.
27-year media veteran, says the document, and you obviously could have written your ticket. Very successful at Fox. This network basically is created, comes calling. Fairly new in the business, especially with this the evil empire as its big stake. I was in Boston.
Okay, so yeah, I get that. And without the Red Sox, the Yankees wouldn't be the Yankees, and
fair.
Vice versa. So they're sort of symbiotic.
That's fair. So what turned you on enough to ride with this network since its inception?
Well, first of all, when the Yes Network was created, I was running all of the Fox RSNs. I wasn't the first CEO. It existed 2 years. They had some issues with Cablevision, and I came on. When it happened, it was really scary when you were at Fox, because the idea that a team would take control of its destiny versus going through a middleman was a scary thing. And so, for me, the ability to be an owner as opposed to just an employee was pretty amazing. And it's amazing. I've sort of gone full circle. So I helped start Fox Sports. I started the regional sports network business. Then I went to Yes, and now Fox bought Yes. So it's, I'm sort of back home where I started from, which is really a great place for the network.
Training, Bettman, Stern, Silver, Tagliabue, we talked about how important it is to have a linear thinking opportunity, and a lawyer, you were a Houlihan Lokey's
I was an
sports entertainment practice and investment banker.
Banking, yeah.
So that whole training is really important to deal with the issues that come up from time to time, create a network like this.
Yeah, it is. Interesting enough, by the way, two of the commissioners of sports, Rob Manfred and Gary Bettman, along with myself, went to Cornell School of Industrial and Labor Relations. How that could possibly fit into being, you would think that this little small school at Cornell would have 3 people involved in sports, as Rob and I were talking about before the panel. But sports is a business, and so to create a business that has a good return on investment, is good for its consumer, works with its partners, it's no different than running. I had Stanford MBA. I worked in packaged goods marketing at General Foods. I had sort of traditional career. That's not the normal way to get in the sports business. Most people in the sports business are there their whole lives. So I think that some of the commissioners you talked about and myself have more traditional business backgrounds than really what's typical in the sports business.
Now, we carefully negotiated this term before the interview. You are the godfather of the regional cable business, you could argue. How has it morphed and evolved over the last 10 years?
Well, it's the perfect business at the perfect time. I mean, we have a product that fits basically where the whole media business is going. We have something that's watched live. We have something that's exclusive, meaning that it's not like any other content that you can get over the top through Netflix or Hulu or wait for it to come out on a DVD or something like that. You actually have to watch it. So for a cable operator, it's exclusive content, and then it's the most passionate content in the world. So when Yes Network was created, the idea was to create a place for a community of Yankee fans to get together to watch the Yankees from their point of view. Completely different than watching the Yankees on a national network where it's more of a religious thing or a news item where you're being impartial. We want the Yankees to win. We want the Yankees to do well. When they do badly, we want to understand why and we want to make it better. So for this way that the media business is going, for this point in time where the business is changing so much, you couldn't be in a better position. And that's why the regional sports networks have grown so dramatically. They've grown as cable's grown. The expanded basic bundle has been very important. Sports to a large degree has driven that growth and probably will drive sort of what the future of it is going down the pipe. So we're really in the sweet spot.
For those watching, the Yankees still do own a piece of the Yes Network.
They absolutely do. Yes.
What's the dynamic between, from your perspective, between being owned by the Yankees and covering the Yankees?
I mean, I think it's great. They control their brand, right? They have they have an image to what they want it to be and how they want it to morph. They want their fans to be able to get as much of it as possible from their point of view. And that's exactly what a regional sports network does. The ownership piece really doesn't make a difference. If you're covering, I'll give you another team. So if you're covering the Kansas City Royals and you're Fox and you have a regional sports network in that area, your relationship with that team to some degree, is you're more worried about what that team thinks than even in the case of an ownership position with the Yankees, because we have a long-term rights deal. So if you're Fox and you're the Kansas City Royals, you're cognizant of building up that brand because you want to, when that new rights deal comes up, you want to be the one who gets it. So there's no real difference between owning a regional sports network and having a deal with a regional sports network on a non-ownership basis in terms of how you cover it. You're both basically in the same line, which is help grow that brand over time. And that's the difference between a regional sports network and covering a sport nationally, because then you're not really in line that way.
But the turbulence and the 27-time world champion success of the Yankees probably impacts the network a little more than if they were independent, or not?
No, I mean, I think that if you're a regional sports network, you're dependent on probably what's your most important team is the biggest asset you have, right? So you may have 4 teams, but one team is really driving the revenue, driving the viewership. So if that team is not doing well, and nobody's interested in it, there's no turbulence, they're not winning, there's no stars, that kind of stuff, you're going to have that same impact whether you own the team or not. Now, the team is going to have a little bit of a different impact. If you're just getting a rights fee, right? It's different than if you have an ownership interest of a team. So when everybody talks about the Yankees doing this and being one of the first teams to do this, it was a big business decision. They were making a huge bet. It's basically like doubling down when you're playing blackjack. Right. Because if they started going in the wrong direction, they started losing, and they own the regional sports network, and that's where their equity was, and they had a long-term rights deal out there, those things are going to pile on each other, if you're not doing well. It has incentivized the Yankees and help fortify the Yankees to try to continue to do well. And I can tell you one thing about the Steinbrenner family and the Yankee ownership. There's no team in sports that basically is in the business to basically take whatever revenue that they have and they invest it back in their product, right? I mean, the Yankees are all about winning. That's more important to them, they think, than the money aspect. The money aspect is only important to help fuel that. And so they're fantastic.
Rob Manfred, in a previous interview, supports the notion of a 24-team playoff. I don't know if you knew that. No, I'm kidding. But what do you think of it? Is more better?
I guess this. One of the reasons I love baseball is that it's a 162 game schedule and it means something to win, right? And so winning your division is really an important thing. And I love basketball, I love hockey, but having so many teams make the playoffs, you get the benefit on the playoff side, okay? In that you have more teams in it, and you have everybody rooting for something, but it makes regular season more important when really only the best teams get there. So it's a balancing act that I think the leagues go through. So I think the baseball has a pretty good balancing act right now. So.
Speaking of meaning something, what did Derek Jeter over his career, especially over the last year or two, what did it mean to the Yankees? What did it mean to Yes?
Well, I think Derek Jeter was a player who was the embodiment of the brand, right? He was a classy guy. He was about winning. He was about being a team, the team more important than the individual. He played the game the right way. He was successful. I think Derek Jeter in his entire career, up until the last season, had played 2 games in his entire career that he was out of the playoffs. That meaning his games were not meaningful to being in the playoffs or getting in the playoffs. And so he embodied the brand, right? And so the Yankees, that brand goes back to, obviously, back to the Ruthian era. The Yankees, that's where the brand really started going. And Derek Jeter really continued it on, in a perfect way, along with other members of that core group of people like the Mariano Riveras of the world. For us last season, the Yankees really didn't have a great season on the field, and the fans came out and the fans watched, and part of it was certainly due to their love affair with a guy who embodies what is wonderful about sports. It's hard to believe that a single guy in New York playing in a media market where people's whole lives are scrutinized, not only never got into trouble, right, but handled himself in a way that was really befitting, that Yankee brand, which really stands for, winning in class. And so, he was important for the team, and there's going to be a next Derek Jeter. And the only other thing I would say on Derek Jeter, which I think is a fantastic symbiotic relationship, is Derek Jeter would have been a great player if he was on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Yeah. Okay, but he wouldn't have been Derek Jeter, right? The fact that he did that in New York on the Yankees, right? And he was that great player, and he did all those great things. It was a symbiotic relationship. It's very hard to build the Derek Jeter, unless the team is the right fit for him, and it was perfect.
Assuming you're a Yankee fan, is it fun being a Yankee fan?
It's a little Lucy Ricardo when the famous episode where in the chocolate factory, when I was, this is before my time, where you're in a chocolate factory. So when I go to a game, I enjoy it, but I'm thinking about work, and I'm thinking about the ratings, I'm thinking about sponsors, I'm thinking about the cable operators. I think Rob Manfred said it when he was up there when he talked about it. Nobody who comes up to me and says, they always say you have the greatest job in the world. I don't really argue with that. It's a pretty good job.
I love it when guys say it's before my time, but then it's described in excruciating detail exactly what the episode's all about.
Yeah, but that really was before me. I wasn't born when that episode was on the air, but it shows you the lasting power of the medium we're in. We talked on the panel a little about this. It's not, still call it the television business. It's really the content creation business. But obviously that show was created. That show was in the 1950s.
Timeless.
Okay, and it still has resonance to me. And I don't even know how I saw it or where I saw it. Was it a rerun or was it on Netflix or where I saw that show? But it shows you the power of our media, not just here, but again around the world. Our culture, the United States culture, has been exported by this content creation. And that's part of America's dominance. And I talked about it. It's a very patriotic business we're in. Is the cultural export we have, the net cultural export we have created by, this content that we produce, whether it's sports, whether it's, scripted content, whether it's movies. It's pretty amazing.
Patriotic and lucrative. Timeless, you mentioned. Is baseball timeless? Do we have to tweak it in a major way, or does it sustain its same luster and generational transcendence 10 years from now?
I think that everything needs to evolve, and by evolve, I mean it's got to keep what's great and core about it, and then it's got to evolve with the changing consumption patterns and the changing tastes of consumers. So, Rob did, he talked about stuff to speed up the game. To me, I think that's great, and it's first step. Do I think that baseball would even be better if it was 2 hours long, as opposed to 2 hours and 45 minutes long? Probably. I think it's moving in that direction. Baseball, he's the steward of it, and he needs to do it in a step-by-step fashion to get there. But I think, shorter is better in this, low attention span theater that we have out there. But part of what he can't lose, though, to do that, so I think he's doing it in a thoughtful way, what he can't lose is that what makes baseball unique is partly that it's a sport that has time when you're watching it. So, I always relate, my dad died when I was 9 years old. And I think the reason I love baseball so much was that baseball and sports became sort of a substitute for sort of that relationship that you have with your dad, right? So, baseball always had sort of an emotional connection to me that way, because I was like, watching a baseball game was like being with the dad that I didn't have. So the reason baseball fits so well and it's that storybook father-son relationship or mother-son relationship or mother-daughter relationship is because it's a sport where you literally have time to sit and talk and connect while it's happening. That's the kind of pace it is. So how do you speed up the game, but just keep that element of a game where it has, a beginning, a middle, and an end, which other sports don't have. Some other sports are over by that time.
Huge challenge at Fox, career sustained, survived, thrived. Huge challenge at Yes.
Bought.
Yeah, we got your career down pat. Now, what's next?
Well, I still have work to do at Yes, and part of my mission at Yes is you have a company that was independent, right, where the Yankees, had a big stake in it and a huge stake in running it. Now it's it's a strategic asset for Fox and an important strategic asset for Fox to make sure that both of those parties, right, work together really well to maximize, the asset value and the experience long term for their customers, whether it's the people watching it or the distributors, the advertisers, Coming from Fox, I think I'm sort of uniquely capable to do that because I know the culture and I know what it can do, and so I'm really enjoying what I'm doing now, even though it's back to where I was before. So life's a circle. Same people I worked with 20 years ago, I'm back together with, and it's fantastic.
Given your pending stewardship and what you've done already, I might even consider being a Yankee fan. Thank you.
There you go. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks. Thanks for listening to this edition of Keeping Score. I'm Rick Horrow. The producer of the show is Alex Cohen. Audio producer Adam Wiesen. Technical assistance provided by Jamie Weber, Tanner Simpkins, and Carlos Waddick. The executive editor of Reuters Digital, Dan Colarusso.